Zarigani Shimetan versus Grougrou for life. And of course, we've seen both of these teams already. We're hopping right into the game, so I don't even have time to explain the counter pick system. We'll get there when we get there. It's the Japanese team in purple. It's the French team in the green. This one's going to be a good one. What are we seeing to start off with these comms, Hitzel?
Well, coming out of the Japanese team right away, we kind of see the boogeyman, right? Like we see that armor and we see that custom dually squelcher. This is kind of the weapon, the pair of weapons that everyone's afraid of, that everyone needs to find a way to beat. Out of the French team, we see a little bit of deviation from that. We see actually an L3D and a zap. So we're going with double armor instead of the custom dually squelcher. We'll see how the matchup ends up working out. Right now, the Japanese team is able to kind of take zone at the beginning of the game, while we see the armor weapons kind of get ready for a counter push. So let's see how that ends up working out. And the first armor goes down. The second one should be ready soon. And from this H3, the way this H3 is looking, he's watching for a flank. I don't think either team really has come out on top yet. There's been a lot of back and forth, but there's going to need to be a little bit more picks before one team actually is able to dominate the map here.
And that's what you're noticing so far is I think we just had our first splat of the game. Okay, of course, as I say that, we have two more that go down. But,
I mean, it took 45 seconds for it down, so.
Yeah, it did take 45 seconds. This 1v1's actually going to go the way of that Japanese player. And now we're going to see them start to push forward. Now you can start to see where they're going to start building up their push. You already see the counter down to the 60-point mark. And they're currently sitting in a spot where they're probably at least going to get 20. And we're going to have to see some specials coming out of the side of Grougrou to go ahead and come on back in, to get back in, to try to contest this zone.
Yeah, I mean, this map in mode is one of those maps in mode where you don't have that many opportunities to actually take zone. It's very hard to get back in the mid. So this double armor comp is kind of like an all-in on, like, well, we're going to use these armors to push back in the mid and just hold that one good hold. But they almost, with almost 10 seconds left on the zone timer, I don't really know if it's going to happen. When the first arm went down, someone got taken out. The second arm went down, another person gets taken out. I think that's going to be game.
That is going to be the game. Zarigani making their moment count. They took control right there at the 45-second mark after they were able to get one off of that baller, and they just continued putting the pedal to the metal, making sure that they had all of the map control overall. And I think at the end of the day, that's what nets them the win. Look, only one splat right on the side of Grougrou.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. I mean, I was about to say, like, we didn't really get that much information from this game because, I mean, just the way that splat zones on Starfish can work where you just get locked out once and that's the game. Like, this is kind of a natural thing that can happen, right? But only getting one pick that entire time, that is a little bit concerning. Hopefully in the game two, we'll see a little bit more fighting back from our French team. But speaking of game two, why don't you explain the counter pick system?
Basically, the way it works is they can counterpick any map currently in the pool. And so there isn't any super hard stipulations. The only difference is that teams cannot pick map and mode combinations they have previously won on within the set. That said, we are going to see the Grougrou counterpick go on and come in, and it is going to be Tower Control Inkblot, something we're very familiar with, something, though, that can get very snowbally very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, every Tower Control map kind of has, like, some point where the... where once the push gets to this point along the tower path, it's almost like guaranteed that you're getting like a knockout or something close to it. This map is a little bit weird in that like it kind of has it has one of those points that leads up to another one. But when you have teams able to kind of get a wipe and push back past the first one and get the tower onto the enemy plat, that's when like things get really out of control. So unlike Starfish, this isn't a map where one team getting wiped is inevitable, but it's still something where they need to really be careful about it. And the way that we saw Grougrou unable to really take control of the map last game, if that kind of thing happens again, it really could snowball out of control, like you were saying.
We'll have to see exactly what comes on in for both of these teams. It's Tower Control Inkblot Art Academy. The other thing I want to pay attention to is it's worth noting, I think Grougrou had the shorter range composition on the whole. They had a lot of NSAPs and shots, and that's exactly what they're going to go with here as well. And it's just going to be a little bit harder to hit, especially when you got someone like Suryu on the custom dually sculptures on the other side.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye out for that custom dually sculpture. Like we were saying earlier, the custom dually sculpture is kind of that boogeyman that everyone really needs to be afraid of. So choosing not to go that weapon is something that you really want to make sure you pay attention to how well it's working. At the beginning of the game, we have two people going down on each side. One person going down to two. So it looks like the Japanese team is going to be able to take mid control here. What will they be able to do with it? Members of Grougrou are respawning. Armor's going down. So this looks like it's going to put a halt to kind of control of this tower area right now. But as this other armor goes on, it looks like the Japanese team is going to be a little bit stubborn. That's actually going to get them taken out and give map control to our French team as they get on the tower and start pushing forward. People are still going back and forth, though, so I don't really think there's enough members alive on either team in a relevant position to actually turn this into a push.
This is kind of what we saw in the beginning of the last game too, right? Where it's going to be very neutral back and forth. But the difference between last game and this game is that they're actually trading picks back and forth, right?
Yeah.
But anytime one team tries moving forward, they're currently the ones that are 2 down. They can't get mid control. They can't get control of the plat, and therefore they can't set up to continue moving forward. Nice picks here coming on from Shimetan on this charger, able to continue stalling out this push for the side of the yellow squad. And we're still a minute into this game, Hitzel, a minute and a half nearly. No major push from either one of these teams. They're going to want to try to get past this first checkpoint because we have seen that this is getting very stally. Neither team wants to overstep their bounds.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between main stage and this map is that on main stage, it's really dangerous to be in the middle of the map, which kind of leads to those inevitable wipes where one team is going to go down. Whereas on this map, it's really hard to be on the enemy side of the map, right? So it's easy to kind of take mid, but it's really hard to take the enemy side of the map. So any kind of push like this where you actually can take that kind of ground is pretty vital. Now we see the tower getting past the first checkpoint. That's going to be a big deal in future pushes if the game goes to that right now. But up to the second checkpoint, this is looking really good for the French team.
That's what we were talking about, though, right? It was the Japanese team that went 2 down. It's Grougrou that's going to be able to push forward. They took control of the plat. Look at how much blue ink is still sitting here right now. Kiver going way on forward, looking for a couple more kills with this inkjet. Sees someone on this far right side, but is not going to be able to get that with that splash wall defense. The ink coverage still looking in favor of the blue side, but now it's 3 down. You see them collapsing around the tower. It's going to be a 2-down situation for Grougrou, but they are getting past that third checkpoint. That is huge moving on forward for Grougrou and a fantastic push at the halfway point in this game.
Yeah, we have halfway through the timer remaining, and the Japanese team is going to have to put together a pretty strong push in order to take this, right? Like, we were kind of talking about how, like, once you get past that kind of that point of no return, it doesn't really matter if you got a knockout, you still get, like, a very large magnitude of a push. And even if the Japanese team doesn't go for a knockout, they have to basically do the same thing. And they have 2 minutes to do so. Right now they're going down. They do end up taking out Kiver, which is actually a pretty big deal because that's their main slayer. But it looks like other members are going to go down as well. So yeah, the magnitude of push that we're going to have to see out of the Japanese team to be able to take this back is a pretty tall order for like what's remaining. But as we've seen from them previously in the tournament, they're capable of those explosive pushes. So Grougrou has to be really careful because if they're not, they could let the one person too many go down at the wrong situation, and all of a sudden this Japanese team is going to just leap forward and take a bunch of ground. And unfortunately, though, that's what the French team is doing to them.
That's exactly what Grougrou is doing right now, and you'll notice how far forward they're pushed already. Obito going to try to get this 1v1 with Suryu. They're both going to trade. Kiver's there looking for the pick on Shimetan, but not going to find it. That's going to be a 3-down situation for Grougrou. Gray is the last one alive, and is actually going to go back in, but it's going to get caught right off guard by Shimetan, that charger for Zarigani. And potentially this is where we start to see the tides of this game start to turn. You see Cha-Cha starting to move forward. We've seen impressive plays on this brush so far from this player. Can they start getting some work done on this plat? Can we start to see this yellow ink covered? Looks like called out, and oh no, gonna fall off into the water. 1 minute left to go here for Zarigani. They still don't have control of the plat to move on forward. They're looking to try to get a little bit more ink for this bomb rush. Have to be careful though, the flank coming in from Gray, that is gonna get caught off guard by Suyu, and I think Gray did go down there. You'll notice that now we're finally seeing them push up to this checkpoint, but we see Kiver coming on around, had the ink armor, is gonna get 2v1, but that's gonna be actually all in favor of Grougrou, as that is the complete wipe on his Zarigani, shutting down this push, and this game is quickly running out of time.
Yeah, it seems like every single time this Japanese team puts together some sort of offense, Grougrou is doing something somewhere that's kind of halting progress, that's taking out someone in an unexpected way, that's just kind of pumping the brakes and disrupting the strategy and making it just not a really easy just waltz up to Grougrou's plat where then they can take them out. They're doing things proactively to stop the Japanese team from getting map control, from getting into a dominant position early. That way there's no risk of them losing later on. And now that we go down the last couple seconds, yeah, they're just going to try to take out this last person for fun. the game's going to be over.
1-1, as it is going to be Grougrou tying up the score line here for both these teams. And now it's going to be interesting to see where Zarigani decides to go, because they have the counter pick because they lost the last game. But yeah, overall, a fantastic push coming in from Grougrou, and just Zarigani could never find the ink control of their opponent's plat that they needed, largely because they always had the squid advantage on the map, but also largely because I think really they didn't have a lot to put out on the other side from a safe distance, with the exception of that bomb launcher, which we saw a little bit of, but they were never fully able to capitalize off of that.
It was also the fact that that Grougrou was able to kind of make that really big tower push early in the game. Getting those checkpoints out of the way means that like every substantial push, even if it's not anything that's game winning, is going to put the tower so far back into the Japanese team's base that by the time they actually ride the tower all the way over to Grougrou's side, there's been plenty of opportunities for Grougrou to get picks, to kind of the map control that they can get just kind of naturally kind of fade away. That's kind of like the nature of tower control, right? Like we've talked before about how in Splatoon in general that the push that's the best push wins the game, right? And having one good push now doesn't really influence the ability for someone to push later. But tower control is a little bit different like that, especially because of the checkpoints and also because of how long it takes for the tower to transition back to mid. If you can get a really big lead in tower control and take all the checkpoints and just keep pushing the tower onto your opponent's side of the map, it's very difficult for them to push back. And we saw that in effect that game. Ooh,
yeah, completely agree. Counter pick is going to come in. It's going to be Splat Zone's Blackbelly Skate Park. And I'm a little bit getting of like potential to be a lockout vibes, because if you set up Blackbelly Skate Park properly, you can kind of do exactly what we saw happen on Starfish main stage.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think that I definitely think that that's what they were thinking as well as you. And there also has to be something that went into the choice of Blackbelly specifically. Maybe they think that they have a better ability to kind of like be scrappy and kind of fight like close range engagements, especially considering the fact that Grougrou so far has been going like H3 and Zap and like backline with only one real front line. If anything, this is going to force Grougrou to come to come to the battlefield with a different team comp, and maybe they're looking for that kind of shakeup that'll get them out of their comfort zone. In addition to the fact that this type of Splat Zone map has the same kind of vibes as Starfish main stage, where like a lockout can be all that they need. Because that first game was so dominant that you got to think that they want to do the same thing twice.
You have to think exactly along those lines. Let's hope that Grougrou has prepared for that. The set is 1-1. It's a best of 3 in winners finals. Looks like we do see actually a switch over to the Tri-Slosher coming in here for Obito. That'll be a little bit interesting to watch out for. Of course, double Tri-Slosher on the other side.
This is obnoxious.
Can you tell it's the Tri-Slosher map?
Yeah.
These zones are so tiny, and that's exactly what the Ink Rush, the Tri-Sloshers are able to do, is put out so much ink in a small amount of area. And when you get zones that are this small, you can pretty much just send one player there to completely lock those zones down.
Yeah, what I'm really interested in is how, once Grougrou takes map control, how this double Tri-Slosher Ink Rush comp is actually going to get out of space. Like, I know they have double armor and baller, which we've seen plenty of times in the past is actually a really good zones comp. You can just take the zones so aggressively, and like we're talking about the size of the Splat Zones on this map, it's a good map to keep it on. But I still fear for their ability to push out of their base if they get locked out. So they need to be really careful about how they approach that situation and how to not get themselves, full wiped and stuff in the first place.
Yeah, and we'll have to see exactly if that happens. Of course, though, it's Grougrou on the back line right now. They have to, try to find something to get back into this zone. Such a bomb launcher is going to get popped here by Hippos to try to get a little bit more ink coverage. But right now, they are getting brutally out-painted. That's exactly what Tri-Sloshers do, right? They just kind of charge at you and keep sloshing ink. So they continue moving on forward, but it does look like perhaps they were overstacking their bounds a little bit. See, that baller explosion is going to continue stalling things out. It's one down right now for Grougrou. They still don't have the squid advantage on the map to continue moving on forward, and it's still going to be Zarigani that has control of both of these zones. Finally, a snipe connects for Hypnos here, but has to be careful of the charger on the other side of the map. Tri-Slosher
they need to be careful about
the
zone. They still don't have a penalty. This clock has been slowly ticking down. Every single time the Japanese team gets a little bit of control, that timer gets a little bit closer to 0. And like look at this. This could end up being a situation where like we see a knockout without a cap happening, because if you just keep letting these Tri-Sloshers get up and come run at you, the one quote unquote easy cap that you think you can get would be stopped. 2v3 situation, finally a full wipe, so this is a little bit dicey, but please get the zone.
Please paint.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So now we finally see Grougrou in control, and we finally see, this double Tri-Slosher Ink Rush comp Ink Rush comp have to take back map control, and as we see right away, the Ink Rush goes down, Tri-Slosher's respawning. This is actually might be a little bit difficult for them to even get out of their base, so we'll see how well Grougrou is able to maintain map control.
Obito was sitting there watching the flank. They did pick up Shelton there. Although it's a 3 specials up on the other side of the map. Looks like the Brush is trying to charge in here to take control of this zone. I can't tell. Did that Brush just ran away? Okay, the Brush is continuing to be annoying here. All in meanwhile, Grougrou is holding on. Finally, Cha-Cha goes down, but was able to stay alive for super long and able to have their teammates respawn back on in. Now it's Zarigani that's continuing to try to charge on forward, but actually they're just waiting for the rest of the team. Ink Armor finally popped by them, and now you start to see the Tri-Slashers rush. There's the Ink Rush as well, and that is the very fast cap on a map that Grougrou struggled to do exactly that earlier.
Yeah, you can see how this comp coming out of our Japanese team is going to be able to have those explosive moments where you have like double armor, you have baller. I mean, armor and baller chaining together on something like a Brush that's hard to kill in the first place is just so difficult to deal with, and it takes so much ground, it takes so much attention away, and it allows those Tri-Slashers to kind of move up and do things like this, where they're just like, look, the Hypnosis run away from one Tri-Slasher, another jumps up and does this. Even if he gets this kill, I mean, look how much time was wasted.
Yeah, exactly. And again, this is exactly what we're talking about, right? When the Tri-Slashers just go on around, do their own thing, they're also able to play the objective. They're also able to go ahead, move on forward, paint the zones, and then continue rushing on, continue to maintain map control. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. It's going to take a complete wipe from Grougrou in the next couple of seconds in order to turn the tides of this one around. But they have to be careful. Shelton tries to move forward. That is going to be the penalty exhausted. 5 ticks of the timer left to go here for Zarigani to win this game. You see that Grougrou is starting to get impatient. They're finally going to be able to cap it, but they still have their work cut out for them. We've seen a long push. They'll have to replicate that. But no, a nice knife coming back the other direction from Chicoten. Now looking for the second one to Hypnos. That's a 3-down situation. It is Zarigani that's going to remain in control.
Yeah, only 40 seconds left now. This is really bad for Grougrou. They look like they were in a situation where they could, have some kind of comeback happen. In my brain, I'm like, oh man, like that Ink Brush getting away and being behind you. I mean, people can jump to him, he can flank. This is going to look pretty rough. But it was the Charger that ended up being the pendulum in that kind of situation. And Grougrou's just trying to get out of their base. People are getting taken out left and right. They're still trying to spawn. There's everyone sharking anyway. There's just Tri-Slashers afoot. This is so terrible. I do not think that Grougrou is going to be able to come back here.
Tri-Star pops out of nowhere. Okay, Obito wins that battle, trying to move on forward, but it's a 2-down situation actually for both squads. We've seen the painting tower so far go in favor of Zarigani. 6 seconds left to go, but that's going to be the knockout, as Zarigani was just able to hold on to things with that enhanced painting power again. Zarigani goes up 2-1 in the set.
Yeah, I mean, that game was over before it was over, you know what I mean? That Charger getting that double kill there just started a landslide of just cause and effect that made that game end early. And look at the no surprise that the Tri-Slashers are top scoring on both sides of Black Belly.
I mean, first of all, of course, they have the armor, so a couple of those were assists, but also, like, they're just able to run at you so well. They're able to shut down so many small different areas of the map on Black Belly specifically, and that's exactly what we expected there coming in from the side of Zarigani. And again, we talked a little bit about it between the game, or during the game, I should say, but all of the, the execution just was so much harder to do for Grougrou with their weapon composition, right? They had to get a complete wipe in order to be able to cap both zones. And that is something scary when you're staring on all of these individually talented players that are on Zarigani.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things that were happening in that game were symptoms of what happens when you're being outplayed by like a really, really aggressive comp, right? Like, for example, like we kept seeing like Tri-Slashers like hiding in Ink, like popping out and like picking off the back line or like getting a clutch kill or like, being an effective flank. And that's the kind of stuff where like when you're the more like quote unquote like defensive stable team versus like the more like aggressive, rush down team, when you are in these situations where you just can't actually get a stable footing on the map and there's always a flank and there's always a Sharker and you're always like being taken out in an unexpected way. It's very frustrating, but it's also an indicator that like you are getting outplayed, right? Like those things don't happen if you're winning the game. So I think that the choice of Black Belly was a good one because they were able to kind of put these kind of team comps with like the Brush and the Tri-Slashers to get to good use. Now, what I want to see is what kind of map we're going to see out of Grougrou going into Game 4. And, hopefully what happens in Game 5, because a lot of times when we have these counter pick situations like later on in the brackets, we have these two really good, evenly matched teams where their counter picks are always a really good decision that puts them at a huge advantage. And that first game ends up being really important. So, if that holds true, we'll see maybe another tower control pick, maybe something else out of Grougrou, and they're expected to win it. And then Game 5 is probably going to be another Splat Zones pick. out of the Japanese squad, right? So if we're a fan of Grougrou and we want to see them do well, what we really need to think about is, okay, what kind of pick is going to put them at a big advantage? It's probably going to be a larger map where a more stable, slower team comp that has like the H3 and all that stuff is going to be able to execute its game plan. And then how are they going to rise to the challenge on game 5? Because it's very clear that our Japanese team figured out the formula of what type of map and mode they want to pick, right? They want to pick these kind of lockout centric, really aggro, scrappy Splat Zones maps where they can just use their individual skill to just plow through. And it looks like we're going Rainmaker on Mako Mart, so not the biggest map that that they could have picked if we're thinking about like ways to get away from some of the close range shenanigans. But it's definitely a map where a lot of teamwork is required. I'm a little bit worried about the swinginess of how the Japanese team has been playing when it comes to this. But if they pick this map and mode, they definitely know that they have an advantage there.
Right. Completely agree. I mean, if Grougrou is going to win this, I think they're the ones that are going to need to play together as a team and become greater than the sum of their parts to move on forward, right? Zargani's the ones right now that have the advantage when we're talking about these skirmishes, the individual fights, the 1v1s, things like that. It seems like they're coming out on top, and that's why we saw Splatzone's Blackbelly go that way. But now when we get into even a game mode like Rainmaker, just in general, on paper, you need so much coordination and so much team synergy in order to pull off a lot of good pushes moving on forward, and that's exactly what Grougrou is going to be looking to do. The question is going to be, can they fend off an explosive push coming in from Zarigani, where there's a couple of ballers, where there's an ink armor, where there's all of the stuff that's getting flung at them right towards that pedestal where the Rainmaker is supposed to go. Are they going to be able to fend that off? Are they going to be able to pick apart the pushes coming in from Zarigani? We'll just have to wait and see how the set plays out.
Yeah, and also another thing on that note that I want to watch out for is Grougrou's ability to like hold and paint a specific area without having flanks and sharks, kind of disrupting their plans and being too effective. Because I think in the games that they've lost, that's been a constant theme.
Yeah, that has been a constant theme. We are heading on into Game 4. It's set point here for Zarigani, Shimetan, and they're coming on through. We see the vanilla splash pick actually on both sides. That Inkjet is going to come in crucial in order to continue making sure that they can get picks even further and try to pick off some of these players that might be at safe locations.
Yeah, I mean, during the push, the way that the Inkjet can kind of go up and over the walls that are like the map's like natural design to kind of funnel where pushes can come from, being able to go over that structure is a really big deal. So expect to see Inkjet be really important in a lot of the pushes. Right now we see a lot of back and forth off the start. We see Grougrou being able to pick up the Rainmaker at the start. They are taken out. A lot of back and forth. The Japanese team does have some map control right now, but they're not doing anything with it quite yet. We'll see how things shape up as this Dolly Squelcher is able to flank the Rainmaker, able to move towards this location, it seems, as the Japanese team is trying to turn this into a push, but with the people in position to defend it, with the Stingray, that's going to be a full wipe. Now, can Grougrou put together a counter push, or are they going to have to establish some sort of control to convert to a push by the time they pick the Rainmaker up?
Gray's going to try to get some of that control moving on forward here, but can't quite seem to find the flank, and actually is going to be aggressed on the other side. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map where that Rainmaker was, 3 down for Grougrou. That push is going to immediately shut down. Gray going to pop out here after a very nice shark. That Rainmaker is in an unfortunate position right now for Grougrou. Ink Rush pops out of nowhere, and that is going to be the trade going back and forth. 2 down for Zarigani right now, so maybe we can start to see a little bit more in control be picked up by Grougrou. Rainmaker is finally going to reset, though, so that is going to come in here for this side, but and it looks like they are going to get the pop. They'll get a little bit more in control. Some of these members of Zarigani, very split up right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've both been noticing how little domination of the map there has been for either team, so far in this match compared to the other ones. I mean, we did see like that wipe with like a Rainmaker push didn't really make it that far. We've been seeing like a lot of back and forth, a lot of like individual outplays, but nothing really huge that can lead to a big push. The first opportunity that we see in a little bit, once again, the Stingray is going to take that out. Yep. So neither team really scoring, and this is looking like it might turn into a game where we're in like the last minute or two of the game before a significant push happens, and then the other team is going to be in an awkward spot where they have to kind of make one of those desperation pushes where it's like, oh, well, I have to win now, and it's going to change the way they play, which puts them at a disadvantage. So we'll see which team is able to make that first big push, and if
able to pick that up as Cha and able to go ahead and take the lead with the enhanced amount of movement and swim speed there on that Ink Rush. 2 down for Grougrou right now, and that's going to be probably another pop here coming in from Zarigani. They're just going to take this, trying to run forward, but finally the Stingray comes on back. Again, this is not a custom Jet Squelcher main weapon. This is a Stingray main weapon. We'll see how many rays that is. 4 total so far on the match at the 3-minute mark here for, I believe that's Hypnos on that weapon pick. Obito going to finally pick one up onto Suryu. That's going to be a 2-down situation now. Grougrou might have their opportunity to continue pushing forward. They have to pick up their Rainmaker. They have to act swiftly, and they're going to opt to go for this box push. Some of these members of Zarigani are going to start to respawn, but we are going to see the snipe come in from Shimetan to at least get down to the 55-point mark. So they have the lead right now, and if things stand, yes, sure, they'll win the game, but again, that 55 mark is not very safe on this map at all.
Oh, of course not. I mean, we saw what looked like an awesome push in that last minute, right? But then if you look at the scoreboard, the Rainmaker actually didn't make it anywhere that's going to provide points. So we're still in that same situation where any team can win at the last second here, and there's going to be basically no opportunity for a counter push. Once again, we see like the mist in position, we see the Stingray going off. Like that's been like it takes so long, and there's so little like wipes or like big kill situations in between pushes that by the time the next push starts, someone's always in position to disrupt the Rainmaker, and the Stingray is always in position to take him out. So we really haven't seen this kind of this side block push work. It seems like this going through street might actually be a better idea. But I mean, with less than a minute left, like someone's gonna have to do something soon. I would be surprised if Grougrou wins with this 55-point score. Ooh. But I mean, with the way it's going, it might happen.
They're banking on that 55-point score. We do see one flanking on the far right side. Definitely has been called out as Obito's spot. Inkjet's going to be popped and is going to get taken. Obito is going to get taken out. 30 seconds left to go. And right now, that Rainmaker not sitting in exactly the safest spot as Shimetan's going to be able to come on around and pick that up. Stingray does come out. There's no ink control there for the green team. And so that Rainmaker is going to go down to a 3-down situation for them. We're just going to see Grougrou pick this up, stall this one out. They're going to be the ones, unless something really weird happens, they're going to be the ones that are going to force the game 5. 7 seconds left to go. Trying to stall it here right now is Gray. Shelton's going to try to aggress. He is going to go ahead and get that kill, but they have to go ahead and pop this here soon. Hypnos is going down. It's a 2-down situation for Grougrou right now, but it's a 3-down the other direction as well. Shelton's the last one up is going to have difficulty popping this thing, is trying to, but is going to get taken down. And that's Grougrou forcing the game 5 in winners finals of InkStorm 8.
Whew, that was a really odd game. I mean, we were talking the entire time about how it's like, oh well, a bigger push will happen now, surely, right? But no, like neither team was able to make a footing there and make a big push happen. And Grougrou just had a lead and just defended it for 5 minutes, and not the game that we expected. But man, this is two really high level teams being able to just deflect each other's attacks for 5 minutes without like a knockout happening. That's a pretty big rarity in Splatoon. This might be one of the lowest scoring games that we're going to see for the rest of top 8.
Specifically on Rainmaker, right?
Yeah, of all things, yeah.
It's one thing if it's Clay Blitz, it's one thing if it's Splat Zones, but Rainmaker, to go that long where there wasn't a complete wipe for either team, where even when, those pickup situations happen, there was always someone there to shut that down. I specifically want to call out the Stingrays coming in from Hypnos. Those were crucial moving on forward, and impressive to watch.
Stingrays too.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's all dependent on having that Stingray for that custom Jet Squelcher, and we are going to a Game 5 on Splat Zones Inkblot Art Academy. We've seen this happen in Game 5s before, Hitzel. Who does this favor?
I mean, I still think it favors the Japanese team. I think that you might be looking at like the graphic on the screen right now, and you'd be like, "But Hitzel, the French team won Game 2, and it's the same map." But the thing is that there's a big difference between the way tower control plays out on this map and the way that Splat Zones plays out on this map. Splat Zones, like we said earlier, how something like Starfish compared to something like Tower Control Inkblot, where it's like the dangerous places in mid in Starfish, right? And then on Tower Control, the dangerous places on the enemy plat. The thing is, though, first off, the way the map is designed, it changed in Splat Zones, and also where the objective is in Splat Zones. Like in mid and Tower Control, you can kind of sit there and do nothing, and nothing happens. But in Splat Zones, the timer keeps going on, so you're forced to kind of rush into mid, and it creates a similar situation to Starfish, and a little bit of Black Belly, where once one team gets a strong footing, really big single holds happen that can just lead to knockouts. And I think that this is kind of the same flavor of map that our Japanese team has had success on so far in the set. So I think this is very purposeful. I think they want to go for another one of those like big hold knockouts. Thing is though, we did see our French team, do well on this map. All things considered, they still played the map well. And also, like, that Black Belly game was way closer than the Starfish game, right? Like, that Starfish game was just like a one-hit wonder. It just, it was just one wipe at the beginning. That was basically the game. That Black Belly game could have gone either way. And if Grougrou is able to kind of adjust and adapt and stop this like over aggression from being effective, if they can be like really aware of the flanks ahead of time, if they can just get like sweeping effective control of certain parts of the maps that they don't need to worry about, like Sharkers, and they kind of know where the flanks are coming from, they can do better. So we'll see. They had the whole set to kind of adapt and prepare for this. Let's see if Grougrou is able to adjust their play in this game 5, or if the the counterpick from the Japanese team is going to do them in.
We'll have to see. It all comes down to in control of the opponent's plat. Once you start to see that, this game is going to snowball out of control rapidly, and it's neither one of these teams that are going to want to give that up completely. Again, we're probably going to see a very similar neutral game to what we've been seeing before. Actually, we do see one going down right now for Grougrou. That's actually 2 down. At least they're able to get a couple of trades here back and forth, so neither team's really going to fully move forward. You see Gray playing very safe right now, waiting for that armor to come on up. Doesn't want to overstep their bounds because they don't want to give up control of the entire map to this opposing side.
Yeah, I mean, giving up control of the entire map in Splatoon in general is just a death sentence, but especially on this one. We do see the start of a nice hold here, but we see an InkStorm coming down. We see, I think, missiles coming down. Yep, and I believe that there was a third special as well. The Inkbrush gets taken out 3-4 situation. How can Grougrou push forward? They can get another pick right here. They can start moving forward. It looks like they're going to take the map. Are they going to be able to get full map control here? I know the Charger is still on their plat, had to fall back, and I think that the third member, the third frontliner, has been taken out in mid, so this is going to be a hold for Grougrou. Let's see how the return push is going to look like. The armor custom Dolly Squelcher gets that pick out of nowhere. That's like the thing that you see out of these CDS plays. The return and
it looks
that. It's just like that kind of thing that like. This kind of boogeyman team comp that we were talking about before can do things like that, where it's like it's an even match, and all of a sudden like an armored custom Dolly Squelcher kills you from like 100 yards away, it seems, and that can cause a big problem. But that all being said, Grougrou was able to kind of hold back. They were able to not lose map control, and they have the zone again. So while they don't have the lead right now, I think that going into this next situation, they're going to have a bit of an advantage as far as map control goes.
They should, but we'll have to see if the other side can charge up their specials quickly and get back in, because again, a lot of this is pretty similar back and forth, honestly, in terms of these retakes. They wait for the armor, they push in, they get 2 down. It is going to be Grougrou that's going to be taking the lead, but now we're going to have to turn our attention forward to the zone. We see Zarigani finding the weak spot there, jumping on directly into the zone from the plat. They're coming on in, they're trying to get a little bit more ink down on its own, but actually Grougrou is doing a fantastic job right now of making sure that the zone is maintained. They don't want to give up the penalty here, but a nice snipe comes in from Shimetan onto one of those painters from Grougrou. They still can't find the ink to get on in. They have to continue moving forward, and really they haven't found it. I think they will now, and indeed that is the case. Finally control, forcing that penalty. It's a 10-point difference to the halfway mark, but we may very well see this lead change back and forth, and it's all going to come down to the very end of this game.
Yeah, they're not really getting any picks out of that situation. However, members of Grougrou did jump out. They are going to have more special meter leading up to this next situation, so we'll see how it goes down. So we see the InkStorm, we see the armor. That bomb, though, takes out someone, takes out the backliner, actually. So this might actually not be that bad for Grougrou. They are able to take out the brush. Oh, Kevin loses this Dolly Squelcher. DeVito's going to come out and get the revenge pick. 3v2 situation. Right now, the clock is actually starting to tick down. We're down to like 10 seconds of zone time. This could be it. This armor's going to go down. People are jumping in. This is basically the last push of the game. The armor's going to get the pick right there. They're going to go back and forth. This 3v3 situation. They're going to be able to get the penalty.
Able to get the penalty. They haven't quite, because Kivern goes down into zone. Hypnos goes down as well, and that's going to be the game much earlier than we expected. Zarigani is going to move on to grand finals.
Wow, of the 3 Splatoon games, I think that was the closest, even though it didn't go to basically overtime like the Black Belly one did, but it was not enough. Our Japanese team is going to be in grand finals, and now there's going to be a very, very angry Grougrou team in losers. And, historically, when these players lose in winners finals and go down into losers, they start running a terror through losers, and a lot of times come back and win in grand. So this is definitely the team to be scared of if you're down the losers bracket.